Welcome back.
Thank you. Okay,
How have you been? Thank you so much for reading the additional piece.
thank you.
Oh, I am enjoying that. It remind me of
Welcome back.
my school in Bishops.
Well,
That is that,
yeah, I
you
was
know,
looking for more pieces. It did make me, that's why I asked you to read it, because I thought you would enjoy it.
yeah, very good. In fact, I was jealous I didn't write it.
Hold on, well, I guess I could start the recording a little later. We still have a few minutes again. I'm waiting for Mutilal and everyone else to join. This is Cynthia's birthday weekend, so she will not be with us.
Oh, okay.
Wish her a happy birthday.
And Frank had to go away, I guess.
Yes, Frank is
Yeah.
traveling. So, and Arlene can't make it as well. So,
Oh, that's too bad. She would have enjoyed the story I've got now. She can catch up with it later.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm opening with a piece that's not my own. It's written by the great Maya Angelou. But I've changed it some. We've trinified it a little bit. Not too much. Althea, how have you been? Let me see. Yes. Okay. Hi, Althea. I guess we should test. Okay, maybe she's walked away from her computer for a little bit. There's a church that's, well, moved across me. It's relatively new, but there's a my house, another house in between that they've demolished. So now it's just a land, and then the church. So let me know if you guys are hearing the singing or anything.
Nope, nothing coming through to me.
Okay, great. I was worried about that this morning.
Uh,
But it's a Venezuelan church. So
wow. I've never been to a Venezuelan church or witnessed this service or anything, so I don't have a clue. Because
well,
I
it
guess they're
seems
Catholic, right? They're Catholic, is it?
well, I don't think it's a Catholic church. It seems pretty it seems probably like I don't know,
Pentecostal
they
type?
sing a lot. So it seems like a normal church. There's lots of
Okay.
singing and instruments being played. But I
So
don't
maybe
believe it's Catholic.
maybe it's a Trinidadian church with a
No,
lot
no,
of Venezuelans.
it's definitely a Venezuelan church because everything is in
Okay.
Spanish.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Declarations there.
Hi Krishna, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
everyone. Nice to see you,
Morning.
Bish.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Hearing you loud and clear.
Chip the hair, boy.
Huh?
It's Chip the
No,
hair.
I told
You're
that
talking
story. I told that story of what happened. I said I was dreaming someone was cutting my hair. And when I awoke, this is what happened.
Nice one. Right, Mochi?
Hopefully Mozilla will log in soon. Let me check my phone. Okay, we're gonna start with maybe a short meeting, but I think that's okay. Hold on, I keep going there to get my camera. Ooh, maybe a short meeting, but I think that's okay because it's about freedom today. Rest.
Yeah.
This is Emancipation Day, long weekend.
Right.
And that is about relaxation and resting and enjoying a heritage. All right, let me just go here. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording now. No. Oh, Heather, I'm making you co-host.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Poetry and Prose. It is the 3rd of August, 2025, and this is our celebration of Emancipation Day. So thank you for being with us, and I'm happy to kick things off. I would like to kick things off with a well-known poem by Maya Angelou, Still I Rise. And I selected this because when I think of emancipation, this is what I think. This is the feeling it gives to me. Now I've taken the liberty of making some minor changes. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you so beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room, just like the moons and the suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high. Still, I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my carnival offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got a pitch lake digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my carnival upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I'll rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Thank you for listening.
I rise.
And I love that piece. Any comments? I hope I didn't offend by changing such a some things, but I wanted, to me, when I read it, I loved the emotion with it. And Maya Angelou is an American poet, and I wanted to change certain things to make it reflect Trinidad. So instead of saying, I would think I put in the oil well. No, I didn't put in the oil well. That was already there. I put in the pitch lake and carnival. It's supposed to be, does my sexiness upset you?
I thought so.
And when I thought of sexiness, I thought of carnival. And but yeah, so I wanted to change part of it to say leaving behind the nights of fear and terror. I wanted to change it to say cane and stuff, but I didn't know if that would alter it too much. So there we go. That was my rendition. Thank you so much for listening. Any comments?
Well, I thought it was a good adaptation.
Mhm.
One can adapt a poem to suit the environment that you live in. So yeah, it was beautiful. It's, it's always an uplifting poem. So even the adapting adds to the beauty in your rendition of it. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Althea. All right. And
Very
if
good.
there,
Very good reading, Gush.
thank
Very,
you.
very measured. Take your time reading. Good. Well done.
Thank you. It's a poem that really flows. So I find that sometimes people read and they go quite quickly because it's one of those poems where you could naturally just run through it.
Yes,
Right.
and my comment is that, it stems from Maya Angelou herself when she speaks about it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. And I felt that the emotions you conveyed by making it local, localizing it, actually made a significant enhancement to me in receiving it as something being read and the types of emotions it conjured and the pictures it painted in my mind. So I think you did an excellent job and thank you so much for that.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move right along to Heather. Heather Latu Ferguson will be reading.
Hello.
Hi, Heather.
Hello. Nice
Hello.
joining you folks today. I'm going to read
Hello.
a kind of longish short story within the framework of certain facts and actual events and dates. I've crafted an emancipation story of two women, Kezia and Bella. The emancipation of Kezia and Bella. The year was 1870. Kezia was dying. She lay on a threadbare cot in a dingy room at the infirmary run by the Dominican Order of Nuns, who had just come to Trinidad from France just 2 years prior, in 1868, to do God's work. Alone at 90 years of age, she drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes awakening to memories of a long past that had faded into the mists of time. She glanced towards a window with a tattered muslin curtain waving in the breeze. Look, I see Mommy by the corner. I know it's she because she lion skin cape and gold necklace she wearing. I always wanted that necklace, she whispered before succumbing once again to sleep. Then, later, mid-morning, she awoke with a start. Oh God, oi, some white men take me away. I go through a door by the sea and they put me on the boat. But I am Yoruba, she cried out. Then her voice dropping to a murmur, she added almost as an afterthought, what mommy going to think when I come home? She whimpered as if she was going to cry. Then the morning duty nun entered the room in her long white habit and gold-beaded rosary. Kezia asked, I dead? You's an angel? No, the nun answered. You're still with us. Kezia looked at the rosary with longing. I always wanted a bead gold necklace like Mommy's, she muttered incoherently. The nun had no idea what she was talking about. Time for your medicine, the nun said, then poured some nasty smelling liquid down Kezia's throat and left the room. Kezia slipped back into the netherworld. She became restless, turning this way and that in some distress. These chains so heavy, look how they cut in my ankles. And it's so wet and smelly here in the bottom of the boat. She panted heavily before slipping back into sleep. Then later, suddenly, Kezia bolted straight upright into a sitting position. I making baby. A white man plant a child inside me. They take it away when it born. I wonder where it is now. She fell back on the flat pillow, exhausted. From time to time, she clutched at the thin, dirty sheet covering her, whispering to no one in particular. Adelaide Dyson fight them. Christmas time in Diego Martin. The macaque, she exclaimed out loud. I helped she by a getaway, and look how they make she suffer a lifetime in chains. Kezia's rants made no sense to anyone who happened to hear. She's talking nonsense now, said the nun in attendance to an ancient-looking cleaner in the room. Actually, what she talking about happened over 60 years ago in 1805. My father and mother day, the cleaner replied, adding, you were not to know as you are newly arrived in Trinidad. She is dying anyway. Her life is in review, the nun observed. The dying process they were familiar with. It was the lingering life force they had no control over. It was all in God's hands. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Kezia drifted into wakefulness. She seemed fully lucid. Is Emancipation Day? We free? What will happen to us now? I can't go home again. Mommy must be dead now. Nobody gonna know me, she stuttered, glaring with vacant eyes at the fluttering curtain at the grimy window. Then, late afternoon, she spoke one last time. Where am I? She asked, confused. I have to go by madam. She go fire me if I late. Kezia became agitated. Who is madam? The nun on the afternoon duty asked. Is Mistress Abercrombie. I worked for her 30 years now after we free. Until then, I had no name. I was number 336. It's she who called me Kezia. I have to go. I go in. Kezia raised her arm toward the ceiling with its rotating fan. Look, is Mommy up there? What's she doing quite here? But the boat stopped coming a long while now. And with that, her arm dropped back on the bed with a thud. She was dead, a soul free at last. Death was her final emancipation, and it took place, strangely enough, on the anniversary of Emancipation Day. At this very moment, deep in the heart of an English countryside, a mulatto woman of 70 named Bella Jones felt a cold shiver go through her. It was as if someone in the world was no more. She brushed the soot off the grate of the fireplace in the pretty, cozy cottage where she lived with her husband. Their cottage stood in the town of Topsham in Devon, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, the site of a thriving slave trade until about just 3 decades ago. Bella had had a storied life. Her infant years were spent in an orphanage in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Born to a young slave woman and her white master, she was given up at birth to be brought up as a ward of a local charity. The guardians there called her Bella, as she was fair-skinned and pretty. They educated her and taught her skills, how to cook, sew, read, and write. At 18, she was taken away to England as a nanny for a family of returning British expats, with the intention that she would help bring up their children. 2 years later, she fell in love with the family chauffeur and they married. She and her charges often wondered about her blood family. Mrs. Bella, what about your family? Her employer's children asked on more than one occasion. To which she replied, I have no family of which I am aware. The children tried to cheer her, saying, we are your family now. She never knew of her mother Kezia or of the white man who was her father. This English family became a substitute family. They were kind to her and she served them with devotion and loyalty. The years went by, and as her charges grew up and left home, she stayed on and looked after her mistress and master, nursing them through their final illnesses. Upon their eventual passing, she and her husband faced an uncertain future. This is when fate intervened to provide a solution. One day, the family lawyer summoned her to his office. Your employers have provided for you in your future endeavors by bequeathing to you their cottage in Devon with an annuity upon which you can both live, he said. Bella inhaled sharply in shock and looked over at her husband. He seemed quite surprised. Here is the deed. Sign in this space, the lawyer instructed, as he pointed along a dotted line on the document. The lawyer then handed each of them a small leather box. Bella's contained a gold beaded necklace that had once belonged to her mistress. He said, your madam wanted you to have this small token as a remembrance of her. She knew how much you admired it and how lovingly you cleaned and polished it for her. Bella was speechless. Her hands trembled as she clasped it between her palms. It is true, her love of this gold beaded necklace was almost visceral, unexplainable, more like an inherited trait than an affected acquisition. She put it on right away. Her husband was given one of the master's gold watches. Now, in the very town that had welcomed the slave trade for over 300 years, Bella walked out of the front door of her cottage, which was originally built by a slave trader. She walked past her flowering hedge to a footpath along the coastal headland. She looked around. Everywhere there were stately homes built with the proceeds of the slave trade, mansions built upon the suffering of fellow human beings. She sighed, realizing that somehow her life had come full circle and closed just a small chapter in this bitter past. She was now independently well off financially and at long last the proud owner of her own home. She breathed in the sea air and fingered the gold necklace at her throat. Yes, here she was at the very site of the arrival of slave ships, filled with men, women, and children from the western shores of Barbary, hungry, sick, tortured, and treated no better than animals. Some human cargo even thrown overboard to certain death in the very waters surrounding this picturesque town to aid the ship owners in collecting lucrative insurance compensation. Bella looked out over the vast expanse of the town spreading out below her as it flowed toward the coast, the sea in the distance picking up the golden glints of sunlight atop each wave. The scene before her was so peaceful. Who could ever imagine what horrors played out into the waters or on the beaches where the slave ships had come to rest, the cargo that held entrapped in the bowels of hell. Here, Bella stood tall on the anniversary of Emancipation Day, the warm summer breeze caressing her face like a kiss. She inhaled the sea air deeply and sighed as she looked westward across the Atlantic Ocean toward Trinidad, and then directly south toward Africa. And there, unbeknownst to her, was the spirit of Kezia, the mother she had never known, just newly released from the trials of living, standing firmly beside her. The end.
Oh, wow.
Excellent.
I
Thank
just
you
kind
so
of,
much, Heather.
well, all these historical facts are accurate. I just built the story into that framework because I wanted to um, talk about Adelaide Dyson, for example. I don't know how many Trinidadians are really aware of this woman that led slaves against their masters in a plantation in Diego Martin, and how she suffered. They put a 10-pound ring on her leg and sent her back out to work in the fields with that all her life. These are heroes and heroines that fought for slavery in the midst of, they didn't know how things were going to end, but they tried and to get justice for fellow human beings. And I actually came across her name on the internet, but the long after I left Trinidad. And this is going to play into my next the poem that I'm going to read, where in school we never learned anything about our own history. So that's a good little segue there. Gersha, thanks for
Well,
sending me that.
no problem. Well, let's take a commentary, and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna let Krishna go, and then you could do the poem after.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Any comments on Heather's piece?
Yes, I would like to say well done, because you said this story was inspired by our special program today, by the subject emancipation, and it was well written and well thought out and well narrated. I thought you did a magnificent job in writing such a very short but powerful piece that says a whole lot about Caribbean history. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yes, Heather, I felt the part where she was passing away quite riveting. That's the way you captured that, because it's not as if you felt as if you were journeying with the character all along, even though you literally just met the character a few moments ago.
Yeah, like most people die kind of in and out like that, unless it's something sudden. So, and actually, to tell you the truth, that was inspired by another short story by an American woman, Dorothy. Gosh, I can't think of her name now, but I'll find it and relate it to you. But it's called The Jilting of Granny Weatherall, and where she's dying and she kind of goes in and out, but in the end it's almost like death jilts her because he doesn't take her to her past dead loved ones on the other side. She just goes to like nowhere. So she thinks she's, and also in real life she was jilted by a lover. So yeah, it's a different thing, but the process of dying was the same. She's in and out and she's remembering different things. So I
Thank
kind
you.
of stole that
No,
concept.
no, you didn't steal it. You learned it.
I'd like to add, commenting, Gersha.
Hi, Kristen.
Four things I noted here. The use of death as the final emancipation. That was moving. Final emancipation being death, and that's the final emancipation, not just for Kezia, but for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Not just for Africans there, right? And even your weaving of the two strands of the narrative, I thought was well done. And the way you included some of the features of the slave trade within the story, and your climactic end there, the spirit of Kezia appearing to Bella. Bella. Well done.
Okay.
Thank you. Krishna, it always means a lot coming from you as a former teacher. Well, I guess even Aldi is a former teacher.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I'm amazed at how you were able to put this together. You said in within the last 2 weeks or a week?
Just a week, yeah.
Wow. Sometimes it takes me 10 years to polish a short story, revising and revising and revising. So you really did a good job in getting the soul of the story right away. And yeah, as I said again, congratulations to you.
Well, thank you. After weeks of writer's block, sometimes it just flows all of a sudden. So yeah.
I was not going to make that comment about writer's block. Heather likes to talk about writer's block. Ironically, she has produced a masterpiece.
Well, maybe now I can keep going for a little while.
Yeah.
I love it. Any other comments?
Yeah, congratulations. What stood out to me, how you were able to juxtapose the emotional lifeline and flow of the story over the historic fact. So, it to me is something that was well crafted, and so you got the history lesson, but you didn't lose the powerful story. So again, congratulations, and thanks for reading and sharing.
Thank you very much. I actually had to go onto the internet and look up certain dates and make sure with her age and the age of her daughter, to make sure I did the maths properly. I was never good at maths at school, but yeah, I had to do my sums.
Yeah. But you did an excellent job, so you made up for
Thank you
it.
very much. That'll be in book number 5.
Okay.
All righty, so we're going to move right along. We'll come back to Heather for her poem, to Krishna.
If you wish, Heather could go on one time, with her poem.
You would prefer that? Sure, no problem.
Yeah, I
Heather.
have time. I have time. I ain't get called as yet from upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, what's she making for lunch today?
Big chicken fried rice.
Okay.
Big chicken fried. But I have to carry her to a recording.
Oh, okay.
In Twin City side. I have to carry her to the musician, and he will carry her to the recording studio. That's
Well, this is a short poem. It's short.
Yes, I know the poem. I had to teach it.
Okay. Colonial Girls' School by Olive Senior, a Jamaican writer living in Canada, just like I am, I guess. And actually, this reminds me so much of my school, Bishop Anstey High School in Port of Spain. This is exactly what we learned and exactly how we ended up feeling. Here we go. Borrowed images, willed our skins pale, muffled our laughter, lowered our voice, let out our hems, dekinked our hair, denied our sex in gym tunics and bloomers, harnessed our voices to madrigals and genteel ears, yoked our minds to declensions in Latin and the language of Shakespeare, told us nothing about ourselves. There was nothing about us at all. How those pale northern eyes and aristocratic whispers once erased us. How our loudness, our laughter debased us. There was nothing left of ourselves, nothing about us at all. Studying history, ancient and modern, kings and queens of England, steppes of Russia, wheat fields of Canada. There was nothing of our landscape there, nothing about us at all. Marcus Garvey turned twice in his grave. 38 was a beacon, a flame, They were talking about desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas, Lamamba and the Congo. To us, mumbo jumbo. We had read Vachel Lindsay's Vision of the Jungle, feeling nothing about ourselves. There was nothing about us at all. Months, years, a childhood memorizing, Latin declensions for our language, bad talking, detentions. Finding nothing about us there, nothing about us at all. So, friend of my childhood years, one day we'll talk about how the mirror broke, who kissed us awake, and who let a Nancy from his bag. For isn't it strange how northern eyes in the brighter world before us now pale? From Talking of Trees, Calabash, 1985. Wow. Short and sweet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That when I read that piece, it reminded me of Barbara's story that we read, her novel that she wrote about her time at Bishop's.
Mhm.
And it brings back a lot from really throughout Trinidad culture, where we have this subculture of people that feels the proximity to whiteness is really what gives them a level of class and betterment than everybody else. So, alrighty, that's my little
Well, you
comment.
know, my parents were both teachers. Mom was at Holy Name. I was at Bishop's. Dad was at QRC, but all our school curriculum was British, Dickens, Shakespeare, and also a lot of the teachers at the time, especially in QRC and Bishops, were English people, people from England, directly from England. And so it was only a gradual thing over the years that people of color came in as our teachers. So I can identify with this poem and the way that we were taught, down to the gym. What did she say? Gym tunics and bloomers. Yeah, that was our uniform for gym.
But what happens to the ones that aren't kissed awake? Because I feel as though those that haven't been kissed awake, they've weaponized it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll let Krishna or someone else respond. Any other comments? Okay, Krishna, you have any comments?
No, I can't remember teaching it. It was so long ago, but it's history, geography, and culture together. The effect of colonization on the individual, self-contempt, the question of identity. But the ending, Heather, remind me of that ending again there. There's an ironic twist.
For isn't it strange how
Yes.
northern eyes in the brighter world before us now pale?
Correct. Isn't
So
that is some kind of poetic justice?
yeah,
taking place
and the
there?
way I read it is, and
Yes.
actually this, I feel this too, and she's in Canada and I'm in Canada. We're now in the world that tried to teach us, the finer things in life and literature and all that. But now we're living here, we see that all pales in comparison to the vibrant culture we had
All right,
left
good.
behind. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way I see it.
Good, good.
Yeah.
That holds.
Okay.
Okay.
Heather, thank you so much for reading. I really love that piece. Thank you.
Can I
All
say
right.
something, please?
Yes.
Sure, jump
Please.
right in.
Yeah. When I went to high school, it was just after independence. We did no West Indian books, none. I did Coral Island. I did Stevenson Kidnapped. I did Shakespeare. Those are the books we did at high school. And I wasn't surprised. And I wasn't surprised, too, from hearing that story now, that some of our teachers came from KRC and Naparima. And what I will consider, without trying to affect anybody, is a kind of colonial brainwashing when Western literature was nowhere on the scene. And those were the books recommended and taught. So and Charles Dickens, by the way, which I love anyhow. So I'm not surprised at the story at all. Because part of my upbringing, during the time I began to read Western literatures, when I went to the Cuba Library and I began to see Mystic Monsieur, and then I saw, I think it was Errol John, Moon on a Rain, or is it a story, so a play called Hasta Luego? Is Errol John? I'm not quite sure. But I know the librarian there, Miss Jones, she would encourage me to read, why don't you read that there? Why don't you read that there? But all you're reading was British literature all the time. It hasn't changed. And even the principal, who was an island scholarship winner from Naparima South, he too was everything was, there was nothing Western about him, nothing Trinidadian about him. He had an accent, as somebody just said, he had an accent. And we went through that thing. So, but I guess after independence, things began to change a little bit, not much. Well, we know what we have now. That's my piece on it. Thank you. I'm
Thanks.
finished.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Thank you. I don't know if you heard me. Did you all?
Yes, we did. We
Okay,
did.
thanks. Okay.
And I still agree. I think we shouldn't stop teaching the classics. I know sometimes people think it's either, local fiction or the classics, but I think, at least for me, Great Expectations. I remember as a child reading Great Expectations and falling in love with it, and Jane Eyre and falling in love with it. So that really sparked my love of literature. So, but I do think it created a different culture
You did.
within our culture. That's
the only escape we had was on Friday evening when there was a drama period. And a student teacher from Naparima, Robin Marad, who used to be the weatherman in TTT, he used to do little plays. And I remember he used to dance limbo on stage. And that was the only thing basically Trinidadian we had. I remember I had to go on stage too. And there were some stories I would want to recite and say, but I had to do it with an accent. It didn't work for me. It just didn't work.
yeah, but I get that. But like the first time I read Shakespeare, I really felt like I was reading a completely different language.
Yeah.
And I literally had to fall in love. I fell in love with the language, to the point where one of myself and another classmate at the time, we thought it would be cute and cool to write letters and write each other's sonnets and things like that. So,
I think I felt
literature really gave us a lot.
I think I felt nearer at home when we had to do that novel Coral Island by R.M. Ballantyne, the South Sea Islands, and talking about coconuts and all that. And I think the class came alive. That might have been Form 3 or Form 4, somewhere about it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Well, it says a lot to see yourself in literature and see your culture in literature. And I think our little group is doing its part. Krishna has recently published as well. Heather's published. Althea's, I'm always seeing Althea in anthologies and things like that being posted online. So we're creating more avenues for local Trinidadians children now to see themselves in literature.
Well, can I just say that as much as I'm in love with Shakespeare and I love the language, and I cut my teeth on it, but and Althea, people who have read my book Vishnu can attest to this, that I equally enjoy and wallow in our own Trini-isms and Trini culture. You know, it's almost like it's Shakespearean in its own way. So you know, it has a Shakespearean twist to it, to the humor and the banter and the stories. So yeah, uh,
Yeah.
I can appreciate both worlds.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good we were colonials a little while. So we enjoy Shakespeare and Dickens and Stevenson and Scott and them. And
Yeah.
you mix the both worlds, and I think that is what I love about the literature itself. Even when going to university, we had that too. All
Yeah.
right. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other
Bye.
comments before we move on to Krishna?
Althea, you wanted to say something?
Well, you know, Heather mentioned the banter that exists in Caribbean. There's just so much humor in Caribbean stories. And I guess they say sometimes you have laughing at yourself was a way of surviving. And we made jokes about each other and jokes about our failures and our comebacks. And when you're reading works like Heather's short story, you feel so comfortable, you know, like you're sitting in a very comfortable, cozy chair. You feel really at home. And I think sometimes it's the place that you need to be. You need that comfort. And yeah, so I have to thank Heather for her stories. Yeah.
Thank you, Althea, for that.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to Krishna. Krishna, thank you for reading today.
Okay.
And you have the floor.
Right. In 1984, there was a poetry reading organized by the University of the West Indies for teachers who are poets. And it took place at Naprima Bowl initially, and then later we went to the Little Carrot Theatre. That was my debut public reading performance. After that, the phone kept ringing off the hook, asking for performances here, there, and everywhere on public stages. I exaggerate, of course. But really, Anson Gonzalez adopted me, and he put me on stages in different parts of Trinidad. And later, Vishnu Gosain also took me to the Nagar Folk Theatre. That was my public reading experiences. So the debut was in 1984. And one of the poems I read is the poem I would be looking at today. I'll be reading from today. Free Paper Come. I read Free Paper Come to largely Afro-Trinidadian audiences. I was a bit, no, I was brave. I wasn't apprehensive. I was very brave reading it. And the responses were well. One of the persons in the audience even asked that I do a recording of it and have it aired on TTT. Well, I just brushed off that idea with a blush. So this is my signature piece on Emancipation Day celebrations. It's in 5 parts, and it was published only in 2019. So I talked about 1984, so it was written before that, right? But I edited it greatly for publication purposes, and it came out in this book, The Public Orator, in 2019. I'm going to read the opening and closing sections. It's in 5 parts. So I'll read the opening. The opening focuses on 1833. That's the year the Act of Emancipation was passed, came into effect in 1834. And the closing section, which has to do with our present time in Trinidad, in the Caribbean. So like as a previous member used to say, hope you enjoy. Well, you remember, hope you enjoy. So, free paper come. Free paper come, massa. Free paper come. The 1830s were in. To pin down the year 1833. In Emerald Isles of the Caribbean Sea, from across the far seas, a wind for modern man, the good news brings. Free paper come, free paper come. And like the legendary Reverend, a century and a third onwards, upon our knees and with clasped hands, with both eyes closed, we fall and pray. For like the Reverend, we've looked over and the promised land we have seen. Decreed too from heaven to our kind, a soul is favored. So, upon our broad shoulders must we each now our own cross bear. In his pair of sky blue eyes, in his immense universe, equal he sees and equal he treats each and every one of us. So thank God, hallelujah. Free paper come. Praise God, hallelujah. Free paper come. We're free at last. Free paper come. Great God Almighty. Free paper come. Free paper come, massa. Free paper come. To times present, we turn our minds, and still for free paper we yearn. The right to stain the index mauve. On the flagpole brought down one flag, and in its place hoisted our own. But the dawn that gesture proposed, the politician disposed of. An archipelago of an arc of scattered pearls on a blue sea, unfederated, remains unbound. Came the promise of power soon, but the fires failed to respond. A coup d'etat was then essayed. Horrible it went, so awry. Horribly it went, so awry. At the loud and obvious cue, upon the streets we failed to throng, mistook it for the right to loot, and loot we did, and did pollute whatever well-meaning dream was mooted. Decades later, like the populace, undecided remained the jury on how authentic pledges penned on a loose sheet of paper can be. This free paper, things like waiting for Godot or the Mahatma, will have to make it come myself, as crooned the legendary bard, in my own handwriting. But first, I have to learn how to master rudiments and the elements of how to write a bit of prose, far less to try my hand at verse. A crash course, of course, or two, a crash course or two, of course, in penmanship or poesy might, just might, this venture light. The wrongs of history set right in standard or the vernacular. Then will I, at the top of my lungs, for the world to hear, say it aloud. Yeah, yeah, free paper come, free paper come. Massa, thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful, Krishna. Any comments?
I could understand, Krishna, clearly when the person told you you needed to record it and have it available for a broader
Yeah.
audience because
Yeah.
I mean I got that same sentiment from it. And I think that I don't know if you ever ended up doing it, but I think that you should, make the attempt and sharing in that media with the actual the strength and the inflection and so on in your voice. And I think that if you could have a very some very low music in the background and so on, I think it will open up a lot of people's mind to the beauty of poetry if that was made available. That's my little comment.
Yeah, well, thanks. I don't mind someone recording it. I don't mind that at all.
Okay.
Krishna, this really whets my appetite to have the
Entire.
sections, the whole section, yeah, all the sections, all 5 of them, and trace that journey. So I guess I'll have to you said could you tell me again what book that's in?
I'll show you. The Public
Oh,
Orator.
okay, Public Orator. Okay, very good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
So,
Heather.
yeah.
Thank you, Jamil, for your suggestion.
No problem.
So
There, I think there was a bit of humor in the second part where the free paper was the right to loot. Well,
Yes.
irony, I guess it is. Free paper meant the right to loot and steal property during a riot, but then people are expressing their dissatisfaction with what free paper turned out to be. It's never quite what you dreamed of. So lots of disappointments there.
Yes, Althea. You're quite right. But I was also making reference to there are 2 historical events here I am alluding to. The 1970, what we call it a so-called February Revolution now. And then 20 years on, 1990. But was the same idea. Same idea,
Okay.
looking for freedom. But you're quite right. It was the pollution of the dream,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we see that most of the world is still waiting for their free paper.
That is quite right.
Depending on where you are,
Yes, that's what to
lots
times
of
present.
deferred dreams.
That's why the voice is still asking, free paper come, massa? Free paper come? When we talk about independence or republicanism, we could still ask the question, free paper come, massa? Paper come? And in the end, when he says free paper come, the question, massa? Now that question, massa, that's an allusion to guerrillas, Naipaul's guerrillas, where he ends with the question, massa? If you know guerrillas at all, well, you could go to it, and if you don't, check it. Check the ending of Guerrillas by V.S. Naipaul.
Okay.
So thank you so much for putting me early. I'm waiting on a call from upstairs. I have 2 things, lunch, and then I have to take her to Trinity.
Oh, thank you so much, Krishna, for reading. Thank you for sharing.
But I'll hang on.
I've left the link of
right?
your book in the chat, and I've also placed it on our Facebook page for anyone interested.
Thanks.
We're going to move right ahead to Vishnu. Vishnu, I know you've been away for a while. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. I'm going to read a poem. It's called Freedom at Last. It's not my poem. Freedom at Last, a poem by Caroline Sampat, and she's a member of the Writers Collaborative. From the belly of the ship came the haunting sound, labored breath, hearts that pound. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, despair and distress with every turn of the tide. They lost everything which once they possessed, save their resilience, but even that was put to the test. Their families bartered and sold off, yet through it all, they were diamonds in the rough. Though they suffered years of pain, they never forgot from whence they came. Traditions and heritage from generations past. Freedom was coming. Freedom at last. Out of the bondage of slavery they became, free from the horrors that once brought them shame. Out of the shackles which held them tight, into the radiance of God's holy light. Thank you. Very short poem, capturing basically all about slavery and all that. So that's a piece by Caroline Sampat from the Writers Collaborative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vishnu. Very
Thank you.
powerful. Short but powerful.
Short,
Any
yes.
comments?
Vishnu, is she a Trinidad writer?
She is, yes. I'm not too sure where in Trinidad.
Okay, because
I'm not
I'm
sure.
related to the Samples, so now you got my curiosity going.
I have no idea. She belongs to that group, and I saw it on the net in her group.
Okay.
And I asked her, could you give me permission to read? She said, sure, Vishnu, go ahead.
Okay.
That's all I know about her.
I'll look her up,
So-
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Writers
Is it
Collaborative Group, that's where she belongs.
Okay.
She's pretty active there, though. It's a group like ours, Poetry and Prose. I think it's a nice poem. I think it captures basically what slavery was about. I think there's a great hope in the end when she says, into the radiance of God's holy light. I think I like it, basically.
Althea, you wanted
So-
to comment?
Well, I wanted to ask Vishnu, is it one of those poems that you have posted on Facebook?
Actually, I recorded it this morning and I'll post it this evening.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Of course, I have her permission to do that too, right? I don't think she'll mind anyway.
Okay.
I think it's a nice piece. It took a while to get it done, though. The rhyming words and the capturing in very few words the stress and all that of slavery and the pains. I mean, we all know the story, right? But the idea is it's put together in 4 stanzas, basically 16 lines. Okay, that's my piece.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Bye. Thank you.
If there aren't any more comments, we're going to move right along to Althea.
Okay. Well, when you mentioned that the theme will be independence and emancipation, I went to Google and Googled independence and emancipation poems, poems about emancipation and independence by Caribbean writers. And so I found this one by Louise Bennett. Another one, the second one is the Caribbean Poet Laureate, Derek Walcott. And there were two others, one by a writer from St. Kitts and another from Nevis. They were independence poems. So I chose these two. So I'm going to start with the one by Mary Louise Burnett. Independence with a vengeance. Independence raising Cain. Jamaica start grow beard, a hope with chin can stand the strain. When dogs maga, him head big, and when puss hungry, him nose clean. But every puss and dog no know what independence mean. Matty say it mean we facety, stand up pon with dignity, and we don't allow nobody for take liberty with we. Independence is with nature, born and bred in all we do. And she glad for say that government turn independent too. She hope them caution world map for stop draw Jamaica small, for the little speck can't show we independentness at all. Moresoever, we must tell map that we don't like we position. Please kindly take we out the sea and draw we in the ocean. Water crosses. Independence would I never have a chance with so much buguyaga that exposed them ignorance. Dog wag him tail for suit him size and match him stamina. Jamaica people need a independence formula. No easy come by freeness things. Enough labor, enough privation. Not much of this and less of that, and plenty stutteration. Independence with a vengeance. Wonder how we going to cope. Jamaica start smoke pipe. I hope we got enough jackass rope. So that's the first one. The second poem is The Sea is History. It's a very complex poem with a lot of metaphors and symbolism, and yeah, it's quite heavy, I have to say, quite heavy. And this one is by Derek Walcott. Where are your monuments, your battles, martyrs? Where is your tribal memory, sirs? In that gray vault, the sea has locked them up. The sea is history. First, there was the heaving oil, heavy as chaos. Then, like a light at the end of a tunnel, the lantern of Caravel. And that was Genesis. Then there was the packed cries, the shit, the mourning, Exodus, bone soldered by coral to bone, mosaics mantled by the benediction of the shark's shadow. That was the Ark of the Covenant. Then came from the plucked wires of sunlight on the seafloor the plangent harps of the Babylon bondage, as the white cories clustered like manacles on drowned women. And those were the ivory bracelets of the Song of Solomon. But the ocean kept turning blank pages, looking for history. Then came the men with eyes heavy as anchors, who sank without tombs, brigands who barbecued cattle, leaving their charred ribs like palm leaves on the shore. Then the foaming, rabid maw of the tidal wave swallowing Port Royal. And that was Jonah. But where is your Renaissance? Sir, it is locked in them sea sands out there past the reef's moiling shelf, where the Manowar floated down. Stop on those goggles. I'll guide you there myself. It's all subtle and submarine through colonnades of coral, past the Gothic windows of sea fans to where the crusty grouper, oinks-eyed, blinks, weighted by its jewels like a bald queen. And these groin caves with barnacles pitted like stone are our cathedrals. And the furnace between the hurricanes, Gomorrah, bones ground by windmills into mall and cornmeal, and the furnace before the hurricanes. I'm sorry. And the furnace before the hurricanes, Gomorrah, bones ground by windmills into mall and cornmeal. And that was Lamentations. And that was just Lamentations. It was not history. Then came like scum on the river's drying lip and brown reeds of villages mantling and congealing into towns. And at evening, the midges choirs, and above them the spires, lancing the side of God as his sun set. And that was the New Testament. Then came the white sisters clapping to the waves, progress, and that was emancipation. Jubilation, oh jubilation, vanishing swiftly as the sea's lace dries in the sun. But that was not history. That was only faith. And then each rock broke into its own nation. Then came the synod of flies. Then came the secretarial heron. Then came the bullfrog bellowing for a vote. Fireflies with bright ideas and bats like jetting ambassadors, and the mantis like khaki police, and the furred caterpillars of judges examining each other closely, and then in the dark, ears of ferns, and in the salt chuckle of rocks with their sea pools, there was the sound, like a rumor without any echo of history really beginning. Okay, as I said, it's a very very deep, very thick poem filled with a lot of metaphors. And he sees the sea as the archive of the Caribbean history, where the slaves are buried in the bottom of the ocean. And that is where Caribbean history begins, with the slave trade and those who lost their lives, because those who survived became the people that are now part of Caribbean nations. And the idea too that he uses a lot of biblical history there as well, and thinks of the slave trade was the horror of slavery was, you say, a displacement of and loss of identity. And he compares the history of slavery to biblical stories where the Jews were guided into safety to the promised land, and it was the opposite to the slaves who arrived, who were free, and their freedom was taken from them and ended up in slavery. And some people say that slavery is real history, and the history of what happened to the Israelites is mythology. So there's a whole lot to think about in this. As I said, it's quite a heavy poem. So I'm just interested to hear what the rest of you think about both of them, or if you've ever read them.
Thank you, Althea. I haven't read them personally, but thank you for sharing. They were quite lovely.
Okay.
Any
Yeah, well, I could say, let me say a couple things. I had a workshop with Derek Walcott in 1991. That was and it so happened to be the anniversary of the attempted coup. 1990 was the attempted coup, 1991. And there were 12 of us. Well, Master Guru Derek chose 12. You know why? 12. Good. Yeah. He supposed he had grand idea of us. And when after the workshop, it was a 2-day workshop for a number of hours. After the workshop, when the person had to give the vote of thanks, Laurel Ince, the wife of the ambassador Basil Ince, when she had to give the vote of thanks, she said, I suppose, as after the workshop with Derek, I suppose many of us will be putting down our pens and pads, because after you listen to Derek now, you know, his standard, the demands that he was making of us as poets, some people felt that they just have to give up at that point. They couldn't fulfill his ambitions for us. That's one. So I know that that's my meeting with Derek. I met him after, and we talked just for a brief second or two. But that was the session where we saw the brilliance of the man. We saw why he became, actually, and it was the following year, 1992, he got the Nobel Prize. I stand corrected, 1992. So it was right after, and actually Laurel said in the address, it's about time this man gets the Nobel Prize. She said that prophetically. So that is one. So I'm saying, so we know his standard, we know when you read a poem by Derek Walcott and you write a poem, you say, nah, can't make that standard. That's too high. So you're right to say it's loaded. It's loaded with allusions and something else you had said. Yeah, it's loaded with allusions because you have Genesis. You know, I was following you. Genesis, Exodus. You have the Covenant. You have Babylon, the Song of Solomon, Jonah, Gomorrah, the New Testament, the Synod, and he was tracing, he's asking Caribbean, what is your history really? You say you have history, and the independence time and the post-independence, where they felt that they had control of their destiny. Derek is questioning that to a great extent in a number of his poems. So I saw that. So metaphors and symbolism. That's what you had said. It's loaded with metaphor, symbolism. Right. So it's a lovely piece. And I challenge anyone to read Derek Walcott and understand him.
Yeah.
It
I think it's a poem.
Yeah, go ahead.
That you have to read, not just listen to it, that you have to read it as well. Because for me, listening is not enough. All of those words and references, you have to find out the history behind them. And
but
that's my
read
opinion.
It good. Althea, I enjoyed your reading of it. You read it good.
Okay, well, I hope I did him justice.
Over to you, Gush.
Thank you for commenting, Krishna. Anyone else would like to comment?
I think I like Malu better. Louis Bennett of Jamaica. I think she uses a dialect all the time, and I'm more at home with that one. I remember teaching at high school a poem called, I think it's Colonization in Reverse. It's a pretty humorous poem with a lot of meaning behind it too. I think she has a whole book of Jamaican dialect poems, which you could easily understand.
Yeah, it's called Jamaica Labrish. Jamaica Labrish.
Yeah.
And she used,
I think the university, I think
Go
the
ahead,
university honored her with a doctorate, I believe, some years ago. Really? Yeah, okay, that's my take on it. Yeah.
I don't know. I neglected to make mention of that, Althea. Jamaica Labrish. She uses the dialect, Jamaican dialect. She uses the quatrain. I think it's quatrains, 4 lines. It's a standard form she uses. And she makes great use of satire, irony in her poems. To comment on Jamaican and Caribbean societies.
Yeah.
I also met her, yes. She came to Pleasantville and she came to read some of her poems. That was the first and only time I met her in Pleasantville, in the school where I taught.
So I imagine she's quite an entertainer.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And Mati, you mentioned Mati. Mati is one of the characters who recurs in her poems. She uses Mati. Yeah, yes, quite an entertainer. She had us enjoying her poems. Especially too when we hear in the Jamaican twang, we Trinidadians hearing the Jamaican twang. It was quite entertaining.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Krishna. And thanks, Vishnu, for commenting.
Yeah.
Althea, thank you for reading. If there are no other comments, we'll move right along. Mutilal was supposed to be here today, but he sent his apologies. Unfortunately, something came up.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's unable to make it. And we know it must be something quite important because we know he does not miss poetry and prose at all. Welcome to George. George Rampasad that just came in. Welcome.
George and Willard. I'm
Oh,
seeing
hi,
Willard.
Willard.
Yeah. I'm
Yes,
sure Willard might
came in
have,
as well.
I'm sure Willard might want to make a contribution.
Yes, Willard,
And-
would you like to make a
And
contribution?
George.
I know George wanted to sing.
Hi everyone, Willard here. Good afternoon. Good to see you all. Yeah. Sorry to be late.
That's okay. Are you reading today or are you just listening?
I guess as I'm late, I'll just listen on. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, if
I
you
don't have
want to
anything
read, you
prepared
can.
anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry
All
about
right.
that. Okay.
No problem. Love having you. George,
Okay,
I know
thanks.
you wanted to sing. I would let you go last to end us off in song.
Okay, fine.
Lovely. So I am next, but I would also love to read the two pieces that Mutilal was carded to read because I thought it was nice. It was lovely pieces. It's very deep. All right. Just give me a minute here, bring it up. So both pieces are by Marie Sali Agnon. She's Haitian poet. And however, she's lived in Montreal since the 1970s. And this is her first piece. The first piece I'm going to read is called Go Naive. Nothing but the memories of the days before death, the ocean and its gentle song, the ocean and the empty void, empty boats returning, carried by the wind that stirs the empty air, empty hope, and the shacks emptied of fishermen with their empty hands, and children's eyes full right up to the eyelids with the horror of a world empty of all compassion. Nothing left here but what was, and the sky to collect the resentment of those who no longer have the strength to shout. Nothing left here but the restless souls of the dead that we tried to bury beneath slabs of time. Hereafter paradises are houses for the dead. I would so like to write another story, tear the black veil of night, find a path to the end of night. But there's nothing left here, nothing but endless night and the great bare sun in the immensity of empty sky.
Wow.
And when I read poetry like that, just I have it really touches, I believe, your soul. I wish I could write like that. So thank you. If you have any comments, I will.
Well, yeah, I think it's quite a very dark piece with the repetition of empty, and I don't know what is the context in which she wrote the poem or what inspired her, but I immediately thought of the people in Palestine and I mean what they've been going through for the past 2 years through no fault of their own. I'm differentiating them from the Hamas group So I'm talking about the people of Palestine and not Hamas. But I can imagine a poem like that could be about them and how they feel and how the next day feels, you know, this sort of emptiness, as if there's a loss of hope. And well, the writer definitely captures that emotion very well, that darkness very well. Yes, it weighs down on you, Garcia. So I can imagine it would leave you speechless, you know, because you wish that you could, um, if you could perform miracles, that you could do something about that immediately, but unfortunately we can't.
Yeah, it made me think when I selected it, I thought of slavery, you know, there are lots, especially during emancipation, there's
Yeah,
this, they combine hope and with something horrific, but at the time, citizens were born into bondage, and
Mhm.
for them, there was no hope, there was no language to remember, there was no place to remember. So to me, when I read that, I was like, didn't want to just present today pieces that were light and hopeful. I wanted something that reflected the darkness of
Yeah.
what it was as well.
Can I say something at this point here?
Certainly, jump right in, George.
I totally agree with what Althea said. In fact, after the first 4 lines of that poem had been read, I had already started seeing what I have been seeing on the television news about what is happening in Gaza right now. That poem could have been written today by someone experiencing what is happening in Gaza. So I totally agree with you, Althea.
Yeah. Yeah. And slavery comes in all forms. There's still today persons that are being sold as slaves. There's still persons that are being human trafficked. And I feel someone said it earlier in the conversation that, you know, they're all forms of emancipation. I think when Krishna was reading his piece.
So, Garcia, was this a poem about slavery?
No, this was
okay.
not written by myself, but when I read it and how I found it, I'm familiar with her because we had another poet on that had read some of her work, but I was looking up. My initial aim for this session was for us to do the poet laureates of the Caribbean. And I wanted to do, you know, because as it's emancipation, I want them to be of African descent. And
Okay.
so that's what I started. And then I read her piece and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I have to read this. So I initially asked Mutilal to read it. I have one more piece from her. It's called And Then Sometimes from Time to Time. Like a block of granite, silence, no tremor, no voice, no hand. Only the deep certainty of anger and anguish. That coldness in the chest, and then sometimes, from time to time, that gaze, infinitely sad, where nostalgia comes from, brutal, the cry that never falls asleep. And so those are the two that I selected to be read from her. Oh, Mutilal's on. Okay. So those are the two that I selected to be to be read from her. Oh, I didn't realize my video wasn't on. My apologies.
Okay.
Those are the two
Um,
that I selected to be
what
read from her. Any comments?
what's the name of the author?
Marie, I will put her name in the chat, but it's Marie
Okay.
Salih Anyol.
And where is she from?
She is of Haitian descent. She currently lives in Montreal since
Oh,
1970. And I will put a little
okay.
bit, of course, this was written in Haitian Creole, so
Oh,
I
okay.
it was translated.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I've left her information in chat as well.
Yeah.
So Mutilal is here. Mutilal, welcome.
Oh.
Thank you for joining us.
Sorry to be late, but something came up and you know, just had to attend to that.
That's okay. I've read the two pieces I sent you. So if you would like to read your piece, we have time.
I lost my notes right now.
Okay,
I was
that's no
just hoping
problem.
that George came in.
He did. Well, we are happy to have you here.
Okay, and Nazir Jamir came in also.
Yes, Jameer's here as well.
Okay, thanks. Because sorry.
No. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see you. So you can sit back and relax. We have I have one more piece to read. If there are no other comments on the two pieces that we've read. All right. I'm going to go on to my piece, which is a piece that I wrote. It's called Emancipation Day. Walking through Trent City Mall with African prints on parade, headscarves elaborately tied. Restaurants advertise jollof rice in celebration of Emancipation Day. A long weekend, public holiday, as the young would say, we outside. I ponder when the news of freedom reached the ear of the enslaved, so far removed from home and self. Some went into the hills, searching for a safe place out of the slaver's reach. Others went in search of family, bound to another family, another plantation miles away. If I could whisper back in time, tell them how now some leave family for entry into white spaces in search of better opportunities. I ponder after being stripped of name, place, and tongue. I think of the second generation abroad that can't twist their tongue to spit Trini twang without sounding Kixie. The ones that can't find their way from Piarco to Digo. And I sit and I people watch on Emancipation Day. Allow my coffee to get cold while I reflect on now, on then and now, the journey of finding humanity after being dehumanized for so long. And that's my piece. Any comments?
Beautiful, Gershia. I love the last line, looking for humanity after so long. And just by people watching, you're looking to see what you're doing is something normal. Everybody does, and now we're in a period of normalcy, perhaps. After all we've gone through. I'm not sure what your attention was, though. Is that close to what you were thinking?
Yes, it was. Yes, it certainly was, Heather.
Heather, when you said after all we've gone through, Are you talking about slavery or something recent or?
Well, yes, I'm talking about slavery. I'm talking about, even though the indentureship was different, it was really another form of slavery. And even what's going on in the
Yeah.
world today, in Gaza, in the United States, where so many people are
Well, yeah.
being detained and
Yeah.
deported, and they're disappearing. We don't know where they're going. We don't
Yeah.
know their stories. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a modern day
Well,
slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yep.
thinking, when I
so
wrote it,
yeah,
I
we're
was
still,
thinking mostly of slavery
yeah.
because I mean, you learn the stories in school, but and on YouTube there's a plethora of stories and documentaries and things about American slavery. And they have podcasts like Juneteenth where they talk about when they found out about, slavery
Right.
being abolished. But for Trinidad, what happened in Trinidad? How did they find out? Did the plantation owners pull everybody together? Was it just people just telling each other word of mouth?
I think the plantation owners told them, but they also made them stay an extra 2 years.
Yeah,
so yeah, they made them finish.
Was it that you were told, like, look, it's over, but you still have to work here? I mean,
yeah, till we have other arrangements. Yeah, they
and
did that.
those were things that I feel like we didn't get those stories. We don't have, maybe we do, and I didn't get it.
I say something at this point.
Yeah.
Certainly, jump in, George.
When the British passed the Abolition Act, this was in 1834. But the plantation owners had complained that they would be short of labor. So they gave the plantation owners 4 more years until the 1st of August 1838. In that time, the slaves were still working on the plantations, but they gave them as kind of special status as apprenticeship, but they were still slaves. It was on 1st August 1838 that the act really came into effect. So 4 years, the slaves had known that something had happened, but they were told they still had to wait there for 4 years.
Yeah.
So they had not gotten the whole truth. You see, and a lot of people fail to understand that not only were the slaves given any compensation, but that the plantation owners were given compensation for the loss of their slaves, a certain amount of pounds per slave. They were compensated for the freedom of the slaves. And in that 4 years, the slaves, they weren't free from 1834 to 1838. They had put them under this apprenticeship scheme, which really meant that they had 4 more years as slaves.
Yeah. And what I find is that in terms of like getting that information and having those documentaries and getting people that survived slavery to sit and tell their story and tell about how it was, at least for just our small island, being able to have that information. Because Emancipation Day, you see the same things all the time. You see the African wear being paraded. You see the now you've seen a lot of restaurants doing the food stuff. And but the stories, and that's important for writers to get the stories, the people. I feel like there's no way we don't have that. I haven't been able to find those resources. And then putting this together, I looked on our National Heritage sites. You saw the proclamation. But a lot of it goes back to a celebration of African culture. Whereas I feel like the slavery is pushed to the side and it's more of a celebration of African culture. And
Let me say something at this point.
yeah, jump in.
The victor always is the one who writes history. The history of Trinidad is written by the British. So what happened to the slaves? It is not written by the slaves, they couldn't read and write. What happened to them? It is written by the British. And they would tell you that they got their freedom and all was so nice and fine and so. But what they did not tell you was that even up to today, benefited from slavery are still in charge in Trinidad and Tobago. If you look at the old English families and the French Creoles and so, if you go back to the Huggins and the Massey and all of they were the ones that got compensation for losing their slaves, and they are still running the economy. And this we need to understand. You will not find it in the National Archives because the National Archives has history written by the British.
Yeah.
We have not written our own history.
Can I say something here in relation to what George is saying? This is a Canadian Trinidad story, East Indian indentureship Trinidad story. My grandfather owned property in Faizabad that had oil, and he didn't know that. But Reverend Grant, who came from Pictou, Nova Scotia, and started Naprima College, and they were missionaries, people of God, who were going to teach us all about God. His son, Geddes Grant, knew, he was a geologist, he knew there was oil there. And they coaxed not just my grandfather, but other Indian people that owned property there to sell this land cheaply to them. And they made millions on the Apex oil field. So this very day, I tell the story in little dribs and drabs in all my little short stories because I do not want it to die because this happened.
Yeah, on a similar note, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because somewhere I read, they say that if we do not handle our independence correctly, the colonizers comes back as investors.
Yeah.
May I comment on that statement?
Because they know we have the resources
You see,
that they want.
I don't think the colonizers will come back. I think the story of the Greeks in the Trojan horse, the colonials have never left town. We think they left. They have never left. They are not going to come back. They are there and they control. They might not be there physically, but they are there in certain institutions, in the International Monetary Fund and in the World Bank. And so the colonials have never left town. They are in the Trojan horse.
And the Grant family, famous missionaries, they never came back. They stayed there because all the money was there. So now they're Trinidadian. Yeah.
George, I want to agree with George 100% if by be given the opportunity. I think that is very, very revealing in terms of the colonials and their practices never actually left. They just shifted operations to operate more of a chameleon and underground influence. And I also want to agree with him very strongly in that history is told through the eyes of the storyteller. So as they're telling the history and of slavery, etc., and so on, it dawned on me that in a large part, our recollection of those things from books and our readings of those events has been tainted and tarnished through their eyes. And I think that's a huge injustice to, all of the people of the Caribbean.
Thank you for that. If there are no other comments, we're going to move right along to George. Okay, George?
I just have one question. I would like to turn on some volume here, and I would like you to tell me if you are hearing some music in the background.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
So I'm trying to see if you can hear this music in the background.
I'm not hearing anything.
No music.
No,
No.
nothing.
You aren't hearing anything?
No.
Okay. Because I had some background music I wanted to use for this song. But since you cannot hear it, then I just sing the song without any music and any background. Okay?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. Now, this song I made called African Emancipation Day. I was doing some research about African emancipation because I had made a song about called Indian Arrival Day, which was a little well received. But I got some comments on YouTube and people were asking me, why don't you sing a song about African emancipation? I said, well, I don't know anything about it. So I did some research and so on, and I know the song. Okay, so I made this song after having done this research, and what I did was I tried to get the African rhythms into the song. And well, because I am a steel pan player, of course I use the steel pan, but I try to use African instruments because I play certain African drums like the djembe and the talking drum and so, and rattles and shakers and so. But of course, you can't hear this if you want to hear it. You have to go on YouTube and the song African Emancipation Day. Okay. What I will try to sing it without any accompaniment at all. Okay. And enjoy it. And it was because I was looking at what happens to be about 12 million people transported on these ships to the Middle Passage. And 15 and 25% of that died in the country. And we and John, something like protection. The ancestors give us good understanding. It's auspicious day. He would like to see. Just sat out there. Asking for it's good enough. The ancestors done very special day. I expect was as he said, so this and just put I know that he
Thank you, George. I don't know why, but for some reason you're going in and out on my end. Thanks, George. Mutilal will post a link for the song, but unfortunately you were going in and out, for me at least, and a few others in the chat as well. I don't know, did you switch sound systems or
I
we were
was,
hearing?
I was singing the song live.
Okay, we were hearing you, we were hearing you in and out. We were hearing you clearly when you're speaking, but for some reason it was going in and out for me.
Me as well.
But
I-
Mutilal will post the YouTube video.
Gusha, you have to do that because I
Sure, just send me the link.
technologically challenged. But I did post it up on my page yesterday.
Well, on YouTube and look at the video, you would see this exactly what I have been singing.
Yes, I've looked at it, I've seen it. We was talking about earlier. So I just want to read this that Grandfather's Back Pay by the Mighty Chalk Dust. I just want to read two verse here. My grandfather worked like a mule on Stolmeyer Estate, cutlasting and lifting them heavy grapefruit crate. My grandfather worked his life out for all them French Creole, cutting cane, picking coffee, and burning coals. But while my grandfather was perspiring, the wealth of the French Creole was gathering. Now their children living in luxury and making style on me and my 5 tickney. And the chorus goes like this. I want my grandfather back pay. They owe my grandfather back pay. The Vertile, Gomes, and Dilemma, O'Brien, Grant, and O'Connor fill their bank books and build their empire from the sweat of my grandfather. My grandfather worked like a horse. It was blood, sweat, tears, and brute force. No house, no land, no bank book, no pension to leave for his grandchildren. Thank you. That was from a calypso by the mighty chalk dust called Grandfather's Back Pay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mutilal. I know in the US they are still fighting for reparations as well.
Here too.
I understand what Chokdas is saying. In fact, I am a great fan of Chokdas. Since I was a little boy, I was listening to Chokdas. And what he's saying, I understand what he's saying. I also understand the call for reparations in the United States and in the Caribbean and so. But I don't know if I am a pessimist or if I am a realist. But as far as I can see, no one is going to get 1 black cent in reparations ever. Because to give reparations to people is to admit that you did something wrong. And the old colonial colonies, which is colonial powers like England, France, Spain, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, Portugal, they are never ever going to admit what they did was wrong, and they are not going to pay any reparations. I don't want to be a pessimist, but the people who are asking for reparations, they are what we say in Trinidad, they're spinning top in mud.
Well, on
George, I agree
Emancipation
with
Day,
you. Sorry, as I was saying, George, I agree with you again, because you're absolutely correct. They always try to take the moral high ground, and to pay the reparations is actually you're factual and not pessimistic. I don't think it's happening as much as the talk. And recently our Prime Minister brought up the concept again, and she's fully behind it. But I honestly do not believe we're gonna get any traction anywhere with this. And it's not that because it's not just, as you said, and due rightfully, but because to admit the wrong will be a cardinal sin on their part, and they'll avoid that at all cost.
well, I feel on during emancipation, we always have to balance the reality of the past and the present with the hope and the reality of progress we see coming for the future. So what they don't give us, we will make. We've seen a lot of, we've seen our community really make strides coming from being illiterate, from being enslaved, because they were never slaves, they were enslaved, but they were never slaves. They were humans that were captured and enslaved. So I feel as though we've had a great discussion today. Thank you, George, for your points.
Can I just make a short comment?
Sure.
It is that for me, African Emancipation Day, it is not so much of a celebration as such, okay? But I think that it is something that we should use as a time for reflection and recognition of what happened to the ancestors of the people in Trinidad and Tobago and all the colonies today, what happened to them. And then when we have reflected and we have recognized what has happened, yes, then we can celebrate the achievements of their descendants of the former African slaves who would rise to form the elite in our society, and they would excel in things like in politics and sport and in religion and science and languages and so. But first and foremost, I think it is a time for reflection.
And I feel that all the pieces today have done that in terms I wrote my piece more as a comedy piece and looking around and thinking back Heather's piece that would have piece of fiction that would have placed historical fiction that would have placed us there. We spoke about colonization and the effects of it with Olive Signor's piece, Krishna's piece as well. So I feel as though that we've covered that today, the wide spectrum of emotion and thoughts on such a complex topic. We only get one day, but our history is with us always. We carry it with us, and it's reflected in our work. And as writers, that's what we do. We, whether in fiction or nonfiction, we're storytellers, and we're charged with telling history. So I know Mutilal does that in his work. Althea does it in her work. I was reading Althea's book recently on Kindle. So, and when she went back home, The Nakedness of New, that poem is still with me, Althea, when you were walking up the hill. And that's what good poetry does. It stays with you for a few days. It makes you think. It lingers in the background as you walk through life. So thank you. We're almost at the close of our meeting. If there are any other comments, the floor is open right before we close. Any last comments, thoughts?
I just have one question. I have one question. Are you going to have anything talking about Independence Day?
Gusha.
What do you mean?
About Trinidad Independence Day. Are you going to have any discussion about this?
We usually do once the meeting falls around that time. Yes, we do.
Yes.
Our next meeting would be in 2 weeks, which would be the 17th.
Okay.
Okay. August.
Mutilal, you have any last comments before we close?
Yes, well, I'd like to apologize for coming in late, but something came up that I had to attend to, and I also happy that George came in, and I invited George and I invited Jamir, and I'm sure I'd have to look at the video later on, but I'm sure that they made sterling contributions. I would like to thank Jamir and George for joining us, and hope that they would continue to join us in our future meetings. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone that came out today, everyone that read, everyone that contributed. Thank you so much. And yes, I'm looking at our calendar. We could have a meeting on Independence Day if we choose, because it falls on Sunday. So it will certainly be up to group, but thank you everyone for joining us. And with that, we will close.
Okay.
Okay.
Good night. Good night.
Everyone.
Okay, bye.